Hey, welcome back to Land of Confusion. You ever feel like you're pacing around aimlessly, covering the same ground over and over? Or lost in the vast uncharted world while people around you seem to be having no trouble building their farms and their megabases? A lot of us struggle, with most days just being a pointless grind, hoping to scratch together a few diamonds. But what if I told you that you have the key to unlock your own adventure? In this video, we'll be talking about how to approach your life with clear intent, aligning with your strengths and your values to get to your true passion. After all, just like in Minecraft, it's never too late to dig deeper and build a life that resonates with who you really are. Alright, so I'm going to start with a quick question. How did you make your first pivotal career choice? Did you slip into the Steve skin and take the default option, like following what your parents expected of you, or maybe just getting that summer job that never just ended? Or did you take a chance? Did you look for something that you believed was the best choice for you? And now that you look back on it from wherever you are in your life, how did it work out for you? Was it good? Did you get what you needed? Did you get what you wanted? In my case, I kind of did the expected. I slipped into the Steve skin and took an engineering degree based on a fairly heated argument with my dad. Once I was into the engineering degree, where not very much was going on that really got to my resonating character, I decided, well, weaknesses are a thing you got to deal with, so maybe I should make it a little harder and not go into mechanical engineering or computer science, both of which I actually have some skill at. No, I decided to go electrical engineering, and then, doubled down on that and didn't take the computer minor, but said, hey, power systems, yeah, I'm not very good at those. Maybe I should take that path. And, made it even harder. Because, yeah, obviously, just like everybody said at that time, weaknesses, they got to be fixed. Focus on those weaknesses, get those out of your way. Now, of course, you're asking, what does that have to do with you? But bear with me. Because what you need to understand is that we make a lot of choices in our lives, and it's not always clear until later what the consequences of those choices are. So I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into my experience so you can see just what impact the decision that I defaulted to has had on the rest of my career. So I'm going to call back to 1989, graduated from high school, got the inevitable conversation coming up with Dad about what I want to do. Now, at that time, I'd been a bit of a computer nut for at least 8 years from when I got my VIC-20. And I'd come to really love computer graphics, animation, rendering, everything to do with creating images and stories on the computer. And it was great, and I loved it. Dad didn't seem to be that fussed about what I wanted to do or what I loved to do. He said, take engineering because it will give you a career that is based in real-world problems and not just a fad. So that's not to say that my dad was completely off base. I actually was a pretty accomplished Lego builder, and working in my dad's R&D machine shop, I had solved some pretty solid engineering-like problems. And, I definitely didn't suck at it, but it wasn't what gave me the fire and the passion that I really wanted in my life that I thought computer animation would give me. So that said, I had to accept that there was some practicality and some realistic expectations being set by what Dad was suggesting. So I thought, okay, you know what? Let's dive into that engineering degree. So for the next 4.5, 5 years, I was pretty much a solid C student. Had a couple of courses where I got some B's and A's, but power systems, yeah, failed that one. Pulled a D in my radio transmission. Honestly, the whole affair was pretty mediocre. Now, I chalk most of that up to the fact that, school is supposed to be hard. You're supposed to work at it, and it's supposed to be, weeder for keeping people out who aren't really committed to the career. I kept slogging, and yeah, eventually, I did manage to pull my degree out of the hat. But where I did find some energy was in actually writing my first novel. Yeah, so more on that later. Then, with the degree in hand, it was off to the workforce. Now, long-term results of the decision are in. 30 years I've been at this. 17 years I spent doing engineering directly, and 15 more doing project management after a mid-career pivot. Now, over that time, I've got 12 jobs, I've got 3 failed ventures, and tons of lessons learned. But it seemed that I was missing the right lesson. So let's have a quick recap of some of these and see if you can spot the lesson that I should have learned. So my first job was with my dad, and definitely I got to use the stuff that I was good at, which was the R&D and the machining and designing things and I was pretty good at that. But I got to leading a team and found myself burning out, though Dad didn't get rid of me, even though he probably should have. But the actual end came when the project was defunded for external reasons. So, that one I can't count entirely to me, but first signs. After that, I had a quick go at my own venture with some new ideas, but didn't know anything about sales, didn't know anything about internet networking with people, didn't know any people, so that one fell fairly flat and I got another job. So my second job was with a consulting engineering firm doing electrical engineering. It was pretty obvious fairly fast that I was going to get bored with that line of work right away. So I got another job within a couple months, and that was a R&D manager for a local outfit. Again, using things that I was good at, designing, inventing, having a bit of fun with the computer. But alas, the interaction with other people became an increasing part of the work, eventually getting me in front of the customer at the end of a long, frustrating, and not entirely successful installation week, muttering with my outside voice, "You're fucking lucky it does anything for what you paid for it." Needless to say, anybody can figure out that was not going to end well for me, but maybe you might find some hints in that one. After that, I was back into trying my own venture, which I'll cover in a different video, but on to my fourth job, where during the promotion of that other venture, I met with a fellow who got me involved as a senior design engineer with a local mining supply company. In that one, things seemed to be going pretty well. We managed to stick with that one for about 6 years total. At the end, again, I got into managing some people. I got into sort of managing relationships with the bosses. And lo and behold, when the company was bought up by another company, the decision was made that my position was no longer needed. Ergo, I was no longer needed. Well, still something missing. So I'm not going to take you through all 12 experiences. I think by this time, hopefully you've clued into maybe something that I was not picking up on. But there was an interesting clue that came in my third job when they did a personality assessment, which said pretty unequivocally, put this guy in a dark room, give him lots of data, get out of his way, and he will solve the hardest problems you have. And, by the by, don't actually ever repeat an instruction to him. So all this really comes to say what I think you probably already figured out listening to the story. This guy doesn't play well with others. And so you're probably asking yourself the question, didn't you say you had like 15 years as a project manager? Isn't that job really exclusively dealing with people? Well, yes it is, but the money is way better than engineering. It also happened through the course of time that I had run my own business for a while. I learned a bit about sales and dealing with people, and I did actually get better at dealing with people over the years, just of necessity, and carried on getting better and better all the way up until the last of my final position. I did it by dutifully managing and mitigating my weaknesses, learning more and more about managing people, learning more and more about leading people, and really sticking with that old doctrine, even though I'd learned about strengths long ago. Get in front of those weaknesses and you can move to whatever position you want. So I'm guessing by this time that you've probably seen some patterns maybe in yourself that are similar to this, where you've done a lot of work and you've moved through your career getting rid of those weaknesses, managing those things that were blocking your way to more money. And you've found, like I did, at some level or another, that you're either getting too bored because the novelty of the job is worn off, or you're getting burnt out because the expectations and the work for you to do the things that are necessary for the job are not within your easy, comfortable flow range. And every day is a slog, every day is rework, every day is a challenge that you don't get any reward for, right? There's no feeling good at the end of it. It's just, I got through it, I lived, and earned a couple bucks to fill my coffers. So you may sense from the foregoing that I am bitter, but the perspective is entirely my choice. It was my decision to ignore my values and ignore my strengths and go for the dollar, instead of taking the time and ensuring that the things that I was going to spend my valuable time at were aligned to really the best parts of me and the parts that I can bring the most value to other people with. So if you're like me, or if some of this rings true to you, then probably you followed someone else's path. What I would encourage is to not look at that with any regret. The fact is, over the years that you've been working, you've done things, you've learned lessons that you probably don't even realize have leveled you up. And you always have them. No matter what job you go to, no matter what future you try to create yourself, everything you've done is valuable for you to take away. So you can be actually pretty cheerful going forward from today about what your future holds if you approach it based on your strengths and your values instead of other people's best intentions. Of course, you do want to know how to do that, and that's why you've stuck with me through this video, and that's what I'm going to give you next. And it's basically 5 easy steps to get to know your strengths, your weaknesses, your values. And with that, ask the right questions and get valuable answers to help you figure out what your next steps are. Actionable step number 1, don't quit your day job. Digging in and figuring out what your strengths and weaknesses and values are is a first step to getting to the dream job. But there is a lot of work that needs to be done, and it does take time to build anything of value. So if you've got something that's paying the bills today, there's 2 things you need to do. Stick with it. Learn as much as you can, because everything you learn sits in your arsenal for reuse later and is a tool that will support you forever. Actionable step number 2, identify your core values. So you may have already done a little bit of this kind of exercise. It's out there in popular culture, but if you haven't, the exercise for finding core values is fairly straightforward. Typically, you'll be presented with a list of random words or ideas that your exercise is to look through the list, pick the words within 3 or 4 minutes that resonate most with you, that feel the most emotive. And the idea is in a fairly short period of time, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, you nail down, based on emotion and the emotional energy that you get looking at the words. Core values is what they call these. Now, in practice, I've never found that to work very well. So what I suggest is, hunt down 2, 3, 4 of these lists online, put them all together so that you have as big a list as you can. Then sit down with the words and put yourself in the context of your work, put yourself in the context of your family or your home, and put yourself in the context of, your hobbies and your pastimes or your friendships. And then you look at the words that come up, and then you can go away, you can, drink a cup of coffee and then do it again or narrow it down a little bit. What you will find as you do this exercise, when you think of the different contexts of your life, some of the values will repeat no matter which context you're in, and other ones will show up in context of a particular part of your life. But across all the domains of context, what you'll find is the ones that resonate for you most, and in all the contexts, those are your core values. Once you've identified those, you really have a good sense of the values that you need to look for when you're trying to find a job, when you're trying to find a mate, when you're trying to get connecting with friends. All of these relationships really resonate when you have similar aligned core values. Actionable step number 3, embrace your strengths. So you need to first find what those strengths are. And in this case, I would recommend getting a hold of the Strengths Finder 2.0 book. It comes with a test that you can take online, and it will use that test to provide you with 5 words that really categorize or describe your strengths. But you'll get a lot more out of it if you read the book and understand what the words are meaning. However, if you don't want to go that route, though, it is absolutely worth every emerald that librarian is charging for those. But if you don't, you can sit down and think of a couple of things. You want to put your focus on things like, when did I feel strong? What was I doing? When did I feel unstoppable? What was I doing? When did I feel joyful? And what was I doing? You want to think those through, and you want to give those a lot of time. You want to write this down as you're going. And those moments when you're feeling your best are usually tied to something that is a strength for you. It's a fairly personal thing that happens, but what I discovered using the Strengths Finder was creativity and ideas, and the concept of ideas, or creating ideas, hearing ideas, sharing ideas, called ideation, is a strength. You may find a similar thing. You might find that you enjoy that a lot. Or you may find that you enjoy relating to people. Or you might find that competition brings you just unstoppable power. That's a strength. And there's words throughout the Strengths Finder that cover this, but you can, without the Strengths Finder, write down how did the activity that you thought of that you were unstoppable at, how did that make you feel? What was it that you were doing? You can express it in as simple terms as you can. Make sure that you capture the essence of what was going on so that you can see what the strength is. You're going to want to find at least 3, but you should be looking for maybe 4 or 5 strengths because they work together in ways that make you unique. Actionable step number 4. Define and challenge your weaknesses with some intention. Once you know what your strengths are, and you need to get into what's not so great. Now, before you get too far into this, what I want to stress is never under any circumstances when describing a weakness, say, I am. I am is a superpower phrase. When you say I am, you are making a declaration of what you are, and if you put the wrong word behind it, it will undermine everything that you want in your life. So, now, back to the weaknesses. You're going to do the same process that you did with the strengths. You're going to, and unfortunately, there isn't a weaknesses finder. However, if you did the Strengths Finder, you can actually take the test. You pay a little bit more, but it gives you all 34 descriptions, and you can consider the ones at the bottom of the list to be weaknesses or least leaning tendencies. But if you're not going to do it that way, what you're going to do is you're going to look for times when you're depleted, when you find yourself exhausted for work that doesn't seem to be that hard from the outside, times when you're unhappy or depressed feeling, and what you've been doing leading up to that. What you'll find, similar to the strengths, where you become unstoppable, where you become eminently stoppable, probably the thing you're doing is exercising a weakness. Now, weaknesses are tricky because depending on what career you want to have and what path you want to tread, even once you find one that's strengths-based, you may discover that there are weaknesses that affect a critical piece of the work that you need to do. So when you have one of these weaknesses shows up as part of a critical function of a job or a path that you want to choose, then we call that a fatal flaw. And a fatal flaw must be addressed. There's a couple ways to mitigate. You're going to look for somebody who can, who's really found that to be a strength and they can help you. Or you're going to look for training. You're going to look for learning materials. You're going to look for opportunities to practice in a safe environment, trying to solve the problems just by experiencing going through them. This is how you address weaknesses, but you only ever do this if it is a weakness that is in the road between you and the path that you want to go. If the weakness is not something that you're going to ever really need to do, then guess what? You can absolutely wash your hands of it and say, doesn't even matter. But make sure you get them cataloged. Same process. If you want to look at those times when you're least powerful, that's the clue. Write down how it made you feel, write down what you were doing, define that as a couple of words that really captures the essence of what it is. Again, you're going to look for 4 or 5 of those just to make sure you have kind of a rounded picture of what are the things that are the least effective for you to be playing at. Actionable step number 5, ask empowering questions. You're now set up with the answers to what's your values, what's your strengths, and what are the weaknesses you should be avoiding. You can put those together, and if you happen to have any personality test results or anything else that describes who and what you are and like, throw those into ChatGPT or one of the other chat LLMs, because those tools are powerful and can help you in ways that really you'll find quite surprising. And they're always better than just sitting in a corner trying to imagine just by yourself without any feedback. It's always great to get additional feedback from people who you know and trust as well. You can do that to answer these questions, but the questions are simple. What are the roles that are best suited to my abilities and values? What roles should I avoid based on the weaknesses? What service or product can I supply with these strengths? Is there a role where there would be people around me that would have strengths to offset my weaknesses? So these are the kinds of questions you can ask, and you will find that the AI systems these days can give you really powerful answers. So take advantage of it because it will make a difference and give you some great ideas that are actionable straight away. Okay, there you have it. Those are the steps. Finding fulfillment is about creating alignment between your actions and your core values. Don't leap from your current position without a plan. Make sure you have a bucket of water on your hotbar before you head out. And then remember, each choice is a block in the megabase of your life story. So gather your resources, put on your armor, and start crafting a life that you're excited to wake up to. Thanks so much for watching, and I'm so glad if you stayed to the very end. If this was inspiring or helpful in any way, please hit the like and the subscribe button. I will be back with more suggestions and advice to help make you happier and help find your path in this wild world. I hope to see you again next time. Thanks for watching.